Hello, my name is Rick Crosslin, and today we're going to be doing a lesson that's pretty special. You're going to be learning about owl pellets and owls and the predator-prey relationship. And it's going to be exciting because you're going to get to use science methods to try to understand what owls eat for their prey. And so there's a couple parts of this lesson. First, I'm going to give you a little bit of introduction, and I'm going to introduce you to a great horned owl, and then we're going to see a video, and then we're actually going to investigate the owl pellets. And so let's get started. Like all of my science investigations, we want to start with a question and a hypothesis. So if you take a look at your worksheet, the first thing you need to do is get your name on it, because scientists always keep good records for their discoveries. And put today's date, and this is the 5th grade. And we're going to start with questions. Every good investigation starts with questions. And since this is a guided investigation, these are some of the questions we're going to study today. What does an owl eat? How does an owl fit into the food chain? How does an owl fit into a food web? How does it fit into the ecosystem? These are some of the questions that I hope we discover today on our investigation. To understand what owls eat, we need to think about the ecosystem. And ecosystems, almost all animals and plants get their energy from the sun. So when the sun shines down on plants on this planet, they grow because of something called photosynthesis. And as plants grow, they use nutrients that come from dead plants and animals. And our decomposers, our worms and our microbes and our fungus have helped break down all those things that came before it. So the plants grow, energy from the sun to the plants, and then those are called producers. The producers produce food. Along comes animals that eat that food, and those are called consumers. First level consumers is an animal that eats a plant. But there are other animals that eat those consumers. So for example, the sun makes the grass grow. A grasshopper eats the grass, so the grasshopper is a consumer. And then along comes a small mouse that eats the grasshopper. That's a second level consumer. Now later, something might eat that grasshopper, and finally the owl might eat that. So an owl ends up becoming the third level. Let me show you what I'm talking about. This is an example of an energy pyramid from your book, with the sun producing plants and small animals eating the plants, and then going up through snakes, and eventually an owl eating some of that prey. Those kind of examples are all around us, and that's going to help us with our investigation today. So the animals that an owl might eat are divided basically into two big groups. All animals are. Animals that do not have a backbone, those are called invertebrates, and animals that have backbones, and those are called vertebrates. And I want us to focus on vertebrate animals. And you may want to draw this right here next to the questions. I'm going to draw right here. I want you to write the word vertebrate, V-E-R, vertebrate animals. Vertebrate animals have a backbone. And so here's, I'm going to make a, here we go, let's see. Here's my, okay, and believe it or not, that comes down, and that is, and this is the backbone part of an animal. Any kind of animal. And some of these animals actually might have a tail, but all along their spine are bones that make up its backbone. So vertebrate animals have a backbone. They have a backbone. You and I have a backbone. My backbone's right here, and my skull is on top of it. And so any vertebrate animal has a backbone. If you're an invertebrate, you don't have a backbone. For For example, insects, crabs, lobsters, and even jellyfish, they don't have backbones. If you have a backbone and you get stepped on, you're going to make this sound, mush, crunch. Now think about it. If something stepped on me big, like an elephant, I would go mush, crunch, because my tissues would be mushed and then my internal skeleton would be crunched. Now, if you are a grasshopper or a crab, an invertebrate, you are crunch mush. Your skeleton is crushed and your tissues gush out. So I'm a mush crunch, a crab is a crunch mush. And then you have other invertebrates that don't have an internal skeleton nor an external exoskeleton. And those are like worms and jellyfish, and if you step on them, it's mush mush. So you have mush crunch, crunch mush, and mush mush. That's one way I like to divide the animal kingdom. So let's take a look at mush crunch, or vertebrate animals. And there's 5 groups. Just like on your skull, if we think about our skull as my fist, and this is my backbone, there are 5 groups. So everybody put your fist up, and this is your backbone, here's your skull, and here are the 5 groups. The first one is like us, and it has animals that have, they nurse their young and they have hair. Those are called mammals. All right? So the first group, mammals. Everybody say mammals. The second group, I'll give you a hint. One of my, it's a cool group. The second group are, repeat after me, birds. So you have mammals and birds. The third group, my favorite, fish. Yeah. So you have mammals, they have backbones, birds have backbones, and fish have backbones. And the third group, reptiles. For example, snakes, turtles, and lizards have backbones. One time I caught a turtle, and it was hurt and it ended up dying, and we took it apart, and a turtle has a backbone that's fused to its shell. I'm sorry, but just like in the cartoons, turtles cannot come out of their shell because their backbone is hooked to it. So we have mammals, birds, fish, reptiles, and let's see, the last one, amphibians. Animals that start their life in water and eventually come to land and go back to water. Those are our 5 vertebrate groups. I'm down right here. So the 5 groups are mammals, birds, fish, reptiles, and amphibians. Go ahead and write those 5 vertebrate groups, because you're going to pick one in just a moment. These are 5 vertebrate groups, and each one of them has a backbone. Okay, so we've talked about the possible vertebrate groups. So an owl is which type? An owl is a bird. So an owl has a backbone. An owl is a predator. It gets its food and energy from other animals. And those other animals are called prey. So we have 2 words that you should know about, and those 2 words are, and go ahead and write them, predator and prey. In the 6th grade, you're going to learn about symbiosis, which is how 2 animals interact. In predator-prey, it's really good for the predator, plus, and it's really bad for the prey, negative. So your job today is, in a scientific way, try to determine what type of vertebrate animals do owls eat. Here is my great horned owl. And this owl is beautiful, a beautiful creature. Bringing it in to show you some of its adaptations. For example, its eyes that can see at night, its feathers for flying, its beak for tearing, and more importantly, these sharp, sharp talons that are used for clutching prey and bringing it back for its food. It's from Indiana. It's a great horned owl. All right, so we have a question. What do owls eat? In a science investigation, the next thing we do is we come up with a hypothesis. And if you remember, a hypothesis is a possible answer to your question that can be tested. And so here is our hypothesis. If an owl eats more, and I want you to pick a vertebrate group here. I want you to pick one of these that you think owls eat mostly. Do they eat mammals, birds, fish, reptiles, or amphibians? So if an owl eats more, I'm going to say owls eat more mammals. Now, you don't have to agree with me, but mammals, but then I want to give an example of what type of mammal do I think owls eat. Do they eat people? Do they eat mice? Do they eat wolves, dogs, cats? I want you to select one and write an example of it here. So if I say mammals, I might say that it eats more rabbits, because a rabbit is a mammal. That's going to be my hypothesis. If an owl eats more mammals, like a rabbit, prey, then I will, this is a typo, changes, I will find more of its bones in the owl pellet because this animal is part of the food chain. So I got a food chain going right here. I got the sun, I got plants, I got a rabbit, that's what I think, you put what you think, and then I have an owl, and that's my food chain. And always put the sun. Okay? So I'm thinking that that's my hypothesis. Sun, plants, rabbit, owl. So I should find rabbit bones inside of my owl pellet. All right, so we have a question, we have a hypothesis. Before we start, we need to talk about some variables. Variables are right here on your paper. I want to make sure that we're going to control, so all the students will investigate the same type of owl pellets. It wouldn't be a good investigation if some of you had snowy owls and some had screech owls and some had barn owls and some had great horned owls. Everybody's going to use the same type of owl pellets, and that owl is go ahead and write this in, a barn owl. Barn owl, okay? Here are our dependent variable. What is measured? We're going to clean, discover, and identify bones. And we're going to count how many bones are found and what type, okay? We're going to count how many. The experimental variable is, I think I'm going to find more rabbit bones, okay? So you're going to identify and identify the prey. And boys and girls, what I really want you to make sure you do that after you collect and clean all of these, under your pellet, I want you to tell me how many skull bones, how many teeth, other bones, how many animals were found. That's for you. And then your teacher will look at the class. Eventually, you're going to write a conclusion. My hypothesis is correct or is not correct, and tell me why. And then you're going to circle my data does or does not support my hypothesis. That's our goal, to find out if our data does or does not support our hypothesis. All right, so before we get started, maybe we should take a look at an owl pellet. Let me show you what I have one right here. They come, so you might think, well, what is an owl pellet? No, they don't come like this. An owl pellet is the part of an owl that is the part of an owl's food. When an owl eats something, its prey, some things are not digested, undigested parts. Okay? The undigested parts. For example, when an owl eats its prey, it usually swallows it whole. It goes into its digestive system. Now think about this. The tissues, the muscles, the juices all go through the digestive system and are used for energy, and the remains come out as feces. This is not owl feces. This came back up when the owl was finished digesting those. He would regurgitate or throw up the parts that he can't use or she can't use. Some of the things you're going to find, which is kind of cool, you're going to find bones. You're going to find fur or maybe feathers. And chitinous are the claws, nails, maybe even the beak of animals. Now, some of the animals you're going to investigate, you're going to find the skull, okay? And you're going to find these two other pieces of the jaw. Now, I say two. Humans have one, and it's hooked together. Everybody take their fingers like this and hook your jaw. Now, the prey you're going to find, the jaws come apart, and they're like this. So you're going to find two halves of a jaw. You're going to find a skull in two halves. The cool thing about these two halves is you'll be able to tell which one is the right mandible or right jaw because the teeth are on the inside, or which one is the left one because the teeth are on the inside. And you'll be able to put them both back together to see how the molars and the incisors and all that cool stuff. So, an owl pellet has undigested parts that the owl cannot use. So that's what you're going to be looking for, all right? So, and this is regurgitated up. Regurgitated up. In fact, you might find, the first thing you're probably going to find that's going to be kind of cool is skulls. And so I have this worksheet here for you. There's different skulls, weasel, gopher. There's my rabbit skull that I think. There's all kind of skulls. There's going to be deer mice, house mouse, shrew. You might find a mole. Check out the teeth on this mole. That'd be kind of cool to find. Maybe a rat, I don't know. A vole? I never even heard of a vole, but I looked it up, and a vole is the name of a meadow mouse. Voles live in meadows. I provided you a skeleton of a vole. And let's take a look at it. Is it a vertebrate animal? You bet. Look, there's its skull, and there's that bottom mandible, and here is its backbone that goes all the way through it. And we can actually name these. You have the same bones, a cervical vertebrae, your neck. You have a thoracic vertebrae. Everybody say thoracic vertebrae. That's your back. You have lumbar vertebrae. Lumbar, that's your lower back. Sacrum, by your hips. Almost all those bones, there's a comparative bone on your body. So studying these animals is a good way to study your own skeletal system. And finally, we have a bone chart that I've given you that looks like this, with rodents, shrews, moles, birds, and you'll be able to identify a lot of the different bones. I have a pretty amazing video that I'd like to share with you. Ecology and the Barn Owl, a journey of discovery. Now it's time to actually investigate the owl pellet. Let me open this up and let's take a look at what we have here. So these are the undigested parts, the bones, the fur, the feathers, the claws, the nails, the beak. So when you open this up, here's what you have. If you look carefully, you can see some specks and there might be something sticking out. Oh, there's something sticking out right there. First thing you're going to do is your teacher has given you a paper clip and you're going to make a tool out of it. Maybe just going to make a little probe like that. And you can use this to explore. And I'm going to gently pull mine apart. Now you might be doing this a little bit different with water and such. And when I open this up, I can see some teeth right here. The orange enamel, those are teeth of something right here. So I'm going to carefully take all that off. You have a pair of tweezers that you might use to help pull some of the fur off. All right. That's going to be your job to use your tools, including your hand lens that helps you see better, your tweezers to pull, and your probe. It's your job now to start the investigation. I have some of my students here with me today, and we're going to take an up-close look at this beautiful horned owl. This horned owl was actually hit by a car years ago, and I got a permit from the Department of Natural Resources to have it prepared. And I took it to a person called a taxidermist. Now, the word taxidermist is a cool word. Taxi means to move about. So if you get in a taxi in a city, it moves people. Derma is skin. So a taxidermist is a person that takes the skin off of a dead creature, prepares it, the skin and feathers, and then moves the skin onto this foam mount. So a taxidermist moves skin. And so they move the skin, and it has all these great body parts. A body part or a behavior is called an adaptation. And this owl has wonderful adaptations. It has feathers for flying. It has eyes that can see really good in the dark, and even the shape of its face, if the feathers are removed, is almost like an antenna to listen for sounds. It has a sharp beak right here for tearing, but more importantly, it has these beautiful, beautiful talons here for grabbing prey. So an owl makes this noise. At my camp in the summertime, late at night when the kids are asleep, I make this noise. Sometimes I hear it, and sometimes I make it to see if I can call an owl. And I'll listen, and then far off in the forest I might hear. So
cool.
It is cool. So I'll call even louder.
That is amazing.
And the owl comes closer and closer until it's right above me, and I shine my light on it. It gets quite angry. So why does an owl get upset when it hears? What does that mean to the owl? Because they're very territorial. Yeah, what do you think?
It may think that the male needs food for its babies or something.
Yeah, it's like it doesn't want someone else in its forest finding its prey because it needs its prey. So it's like, hey, who cooks for you? You know, it wants to make sure that the owl gets out here. Now let me tell you something about this though. Let me give you an example of what it's like. It's like you're laying at home in bed, and at nighttime, you hear your front door open, you hear someone walk into your kitchen, you open the refrigerator door open, and you start smelling your steak being cooked. Now, are you going to get up and go see what's going on?
Yeah.
Because you don't want someone coming in your house and eating your food. Owls are the same way. They don't want someone coming into their part of the forest or their territory and eating their prey. So this owl at night is so quiet when it flies, it can land on your shoulder
And rip you.
and you wouldn't even know. No, you don't be worried. No, well, you should be worried. Yeah, these talons here, I'll tell you why. Okay, check this out. So an owl listens for this noise. That's the sound of a mouse or some vole in the forest. So he's flying quietly to the forest, and that noise. And the next thing you know, whoo, right on his back. These talons grab it. Are you okay? Breathe. Well, the good news is owls don't eat big things like us, and that's a really good thing. But it's a bad thing for some of the prey you're discovering. What have you found so far? And your
I found a skull.
skulls and
Found two dogs.
I found
jaw.
okay, so you're finding
We found like its jaw. I found
that's
both jaws
that's
and
pretty
the
cool.
claw.
I found the skull.
I'll tell you what.
It's like pelvis.
There's so many things we can learn about these owls and owl pellets, but one of the best ways to learn this is, I heard you guys been singing a song, is that right?
No.
I'll tell you what, let me get out of the way, and let's see if these students here can sing the owl pellet song.
Owl pellets. Owl pellets. Owl pellets, a ball of bones and fur and other things. An owl must eat like you and me. It hunts all night when it can see. Using its claws to capture things. It moves about so silently. And now it looks from us and silently. If it gets lucky, it will find a mole. It doesn't stop till it gets its fill. Then it spits out a disgusting bill. Everybody, owl pellets. Owl pellets. Owl pellets, a ball of bones and fur and other things. Remove the foil and you will see an unknown blob with pointy things. Pick it apart and you will find a big surprise waiting just inside. You will find its prey. Pick it apart throughout the day. Separate the bones from all the fur. Mix up with what and gently stir. Everybody, owl pellets. Owl pellets. Owl pellets, a ball of bones and fur and other things.
No.
You know that the owl doesn't give a hoot. Please accept his apology. He did it for the sake of ecology. Everybody, owl pellets. Owl pellets. Owl pellets, a ball of fur and other things.
I messed up.
Cha-cha-cha.
Written
by David Badowski
and Fred Reddit.
And the kids from Southfield Elementary.
Cha-cha-cha.
Yeah.